Have you ever stopped to think about how a really abstract, kind of philosophical idea actually becomes a real thing? Something you can touch and use in the digital world? Well, that's exactly the journey we're going on today. We're going to follow an idea from a simple concept about the internet's subconscious all the way to a single domain name that now, pretty amazingly, lives in two different worlds at the exact same time. Okay, let's kick things off with this quote because it really sets the stage for everything we're about to dive into. It frames the blockchain as this global truth machine, right? But then it says the mempool, well, that's its subconscious. It's suggesting that the messy, hidden, in-between spaces of the internet are full of unspoken intentions and competing desires. Kind of wild. So before we go any further, what in the world is a mempool? Honestly, the best way to think about it is just like a waiting room. When you send a transaction, any transaction on a blockchain, it doesn't just happen instantly. Nope. It goes and sits in this digital lobby with a bunch of other transactions, all just waiting for their number to be called so they can be added to a permanent block. Right. So what if that waiting room wasn't just a passive, boring place? What if it had feelings? This is the core of a new theory that totally reframes this technical space. It argues the mempool is an emotional place, reflecting the very human feelings of the people on the other side of the screen. The whole argument is this: an unconfirmed transaction isn't just a string of data, it's a declaration. It's someone's intent, it's their trust in the system, and yeah, it's probably got a little bit of their anxiety mixed in as they sit there and wait for it to go through. And this is where it gets really interesting. This framework literally maps these cold, technical events to deeply human feelings. Think about it. Sending a transaction is an act of vulnerability. The wait time? That's pure anxiety and anticipation. Getting that confirmation? That's validation. It's closure. It turns this faceless machine process into something we can all relate to. It's a really cool theory, for sure, but here's the big question. If you were going to build a system that actually respects that human trust, what would it even look like? How do you turn that philosophy into actual code? Well, that brings us to the blueprint. It turns out the answer wasn't in some dense academic paper, but in a real-world piece of code for a secure login system. Because when you get right down to it, managing trust isn't a philosophical problem, it's an engineering one. And this system provides the perfect blueprint for a fortress of digital trust, a place where every single action is secure, verified, and impossible to tamper with. So, to build that trust, you need 5 core pillars. First up, you need secure registration, with everything locked down by encryption. Then, you need integrity, which is where the blockchain comes in as that permanent, tamper-proof record. For verification, you use something like proof of work to make sure everyone's playing fair. You add an extra layer of security with things like one-time passwords. And finally, you have permanent logging, creating an unbreakable audit trail for everything that happens. Okay, so we have the philosophy, and we have the blueprint. Now for the really fun part. Let's watch it all come together in a real-world case study. This is the story of forging a digital chain of trust for one single domain. The journey for this one domain, preferido.us, wasn't a quick fix. Not at all. It started back on June 18th, totally unsecured. It took over a week of just troubleshooting and debugging just to get its basic security protocols in place by the 29th. And that final crucial link to the new internet, that wasn't forged until July 5th. This stuff takes time. And here's what that work actually looks like. On the left, you've got a domain with no digital locks, no keys. Its identity is completely unverified. But on the right, after all that work, it's a completely different story. You can see it has verifiable cryptographic records, digital signatures. This is basically the equivalent of getting a government-issued, tamper-proof seal of authenticity for your domain. And listen, this wasn't as easy as just flipping a switch. It was real detective work. A ghost security key popped up in the system that wasn't actually doing its job, and that was causing all sorts of errors. This meant the developer had to get on the phone, draft support emails, and manually fix this invisible cryptographic chain of trust, one link at a time. So, with the domain's foundation now cryptographically secure, the last piece of the puzzle was to connect it to the world of blockchain. This is the step that would give it a true Web3 identity, making it a citizen of two internets. The mission was simple but pretty revolutionary. Link the classic Web 2 domain, preferido.us, to its new Web 3 counterpart, nurture.eth. Using the Ethereum name service, or ENS, is kind of like giving a traditional domain a passport to this new world, making it recognizable to all the decentralized apps out there. And right here, this is the moment of truth. On the left, before the fix, a search for the blockchain link comes back with NXDOMA, which just means doesn't exist. The two worlds are totally separate. But look at the right. After the fix, the same search gets a no error and a clear answer. This domain is now linked to nurture.eth. The bridge is officially built. It's now advertising its blockchain identity for anyone to see. Now, normally, to forge a link like this on the blockchain, you'd be looking at a minimum of 3 separate transactions. And each one of those costs time. And maybe more importantly, each one costs you money in gas fees. But here's the real payoff. This is the clever part. All that hard work building that chain of trust on the old internet, that security was used as a shortcut on the new internet. The developer was able to link the domain to the blockchain without paying any on-chain gas fees whatsoever. That's the power of building this bridge, using the trust of one world to save yourself time and money in another. So what's the big takeaway here? Let's zoom out. We've literally gone from a philosophical idea about an emotional waiting room all the way to a real, working, cost-effective piece of digital identity infrastructure. This whole process really shows that the future of the internet isn't just about these grand, abstract ideas. It's actually built on the meticulous, sometimes frustrating, but ultimately rewarding work of connecting different systems, debugging them, and forging these unbreakable chains of trust between them, one line of code at a time. And that entire journey leaves us with one last big question. We just saw a simple domain name get a secure, verifiable identity that exists across 2 different internets at once. So if this is possible for a website, it makes you wonder, what's next for our own digital identities? The lines are blurring and it's happening faster than we think.